thrill seekers, and I am in Bonn, Germany. I'm actually in the city of Bonn now, not on the outskirts, and I'm talking a little bit quietly because this is a rented Airbnb, and I'm not sure who my neighbors are, and I don't want to bother them by doing a loud video in their backyard. And the song I played was it's kind of Dear Prudence, the Beatles song, but, iffy version. So I hope you enjoyed that little musical interlude. And I guess a few days ago, I upset the Soto Zen Buddhist Facebook page because I said some things on Twitter that were regarded as conspiracy theories. And so I'd like to talk about that. And just in case you missed the whole kerfuffle, well, you didn't miss anything. Because the conspiracy theory that I made what I thought was a rather very light sort of comment about was the same sort of conspiracy theory that you might have heard Jon Stewart allude to on the Stephen Colbert show about a year ago. So if something that a major comedian, who had a national television show for years, can talk about on a major American network, is something that has you reaching for the smelling salts as being like, oh my God, he said something about that. You might want to get a life. So I don't know about these people who hang out on the Facebook Soto Zen Buddhist page. I'm not sure what sort of hole they're living in. I actually unsubscribed from the Facebook Soto Zen Buddhist page after that happened, so I'm not going to be seeing anything on there ever again. But let's talk about that, though, because I think it's kind of interesting. At least it's sort of interesting to me. So let me tell you why it's interesting to me. Now, first things first. If I was a person who was into spreading conspiracy theories, you folks who watch me on YouTube would probably know about that because I would spend my time on my YouTube channel spreading conspiracy theories. I have a career as a writer of books and a YouTube person, and I'm out here in Europe doing a lecture tour. Maybe I would use my time in my books, in my YouTube videos, and in my lectures talking about conspiracy theories instead of talking about Buddhist theories. I don't believe this thing that's kind of going around these days that people talk in, dog whistles, that, well, he doesn't really mention anything about these conspiracy theories, but he's actually, when he's talking about a fire, an arsonist in Finland, well, he really means the Illuminati and the reptilians are colluding with the Rothschild family to blah, blah, blah. And only his followers can see it because he made a gesture like this. That sort of thing. No, there's no hidden subtext. What I talk about is what I talk about. So, there's that. So there's no hidden agenda going on here. But one of the people on Twitter was saying, something about Zen teachers who, why is it that Zen teachers are all into conspiracy theories? Well, I don't know who these other Zen teachers that are into conspiracy theories are, because I don't, maybe some, I don't. But let's talk about how this might work, okay? Because this is what's kind of interesting to me. Let's take a conspiracy theory that's a sort of a fun one, one that might not ruffle too many feathers. Let's take, did men actually walk on the moon? And let's ask Brad, do you believe, Brad, that men actually walked on the moon? Okay, let me answer that question. I believe that Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong believe that they walked on the moon. So I believe that Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, that's right, believe that Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, or Buzz Armstrong, anyway, whichever, Buzz Lightyear and Neil, whatever, I believe that they walked on the moon. And when I say I believe that they walked on the moon, I don't mean that they were drugged by the CIA and, fooled into believing they walked on the moon. They believe they walked on the moon, or they believe they believe they landed on the moon and walked on the moon, but you'll see why I'm making the metaphor like that. They believe they landed on the moon for the same reason that I believe that I landed in Munich airport last week, or, about a week ago. Because I believe I landed in Munich airport because I got on an airplane and, in Helsinki and was on it bumping around for 2.5 hours and, and landed in Munich airport. So, I believe I have a ticket, that I can show you that shows that I landed in Munich airport. And, and I think they, have the evidence to show that they landed on the moon, so in conventional terms, they landed on the moon. But I also am a student of Zen, and one of the funny things that happened in the course of my Zen instruction in life was that one day when my teacher Nishijima Roshi was about to depart for a trip to Israel. He made a couple of trips to Israel. I'm not sure how many trips to Israel he made. He was talking to us about it at a lecture, and he said something like this. He said, "Some people say that I will get on an airplane and spend several hours on an airplane and then get off that airplane in another country. But I'm not so sure that's what really happens." So, in Nishijima Roshi's way of thinking, the conventional explanation for something as, mundane as getting on an airplane, spending a couple of hours on the airplane, and then finding yourself in another country, that conventional explanation of how the world works, wasn't quite true. Now, if you think back to a few videos ago, I talked about Donald Hoffman and his ideas about those beetles in Australia. And in case you didn't watch the video, I'll see if I can sum it up for you. Donald Hoffman is a cognitive scientist who wrote a book called The Case Against Reality. And he was inspired to write this book called The Case Against Reality by a story about these beetles in Australia who were in danger of going extinct because there was a certain kind of beer bottle that an Australian beer manufacturer was making that was fooling the beetles. And for whatever reasons, the male of this beetle species found these beer bottles much sexier than the female beetles. So they were trying to mate with the beer bottles, and they preferred the beer bottles to the female beetles because, for whatever reasons, the beer bottles had more of what the male beetles found sexy than the female beetles. Whatever signals that attract the male beetles to mate, there was more of it in the beer bottles than there was in the female beetles. And this led Hoffman to speculate that what we perceive in reality may not be what's actually out there. And this is a very old idea in Buddhism, that what we perceive in reality is not actually what's out there in reality. So like Nishijima Roshi said, when he said that people say I'll get on an airplane and a few hours later I'll be in another country, the conventional explanation for what happens in reality isn't what actually happens in reality. So for a person who doesn't believe that, going on an airplane and flying for a few hours and coming into another country is what actually happens, then the conventional explanations about, all sorts of things might be doubtful. Nishijima Roshi had a few ideas about things. I remember talking to him about the Kennedy assassination, for example, and he said, that was very suspicious. The man who killed Kennedy was suddenly killed a few days later. He didn't have any elaborate, ideas about the guy on the grassy knoll or the shellfish toxin or any of these other, weird conspiracy theories that people have about the Kennedy assassination, but he thought it was suspicious. He didn't believe, for example, that the ostensible, is that the right word? That the leaders of nations were the actual people who called the shots in world governments. He thought maybe there were other financial interests and people like that who were actually calling the shots when it came to the real decisions that were made. A lot of people believe that. My teacher believed that. So for him, the conventional explanations for how just the conventional things in reality worked were not satisfactory. I'd say I probably go along with that. Anybody who thinks that the conventional mainstream media explanations for a lot of the stuff that's gone on over the past 2.5 years are adequate, I think those explanations are highly dubious. And I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to go into what I think really happened, because I probably don't know what really happened, but I'll tell you, I think the things that we're hearing on the news are probably iffy. So, I'll admit that. But I'm not, my job in life is not to tell you what I think really happened with Big Pharma and all that. My job, I think, is to talk about Buddhism, because I think that is way more important. But occasionally I'll let it slip that I don't think that what we're being told on the news is true. Because I don't think that what we're told anywhere is true. That's kind of where I stand when it comes to that. I don't think that, the conventional explanations about anything are the true explanations. And that's kind of where Buddhism comes down on stuff. But, the other thing that Buddhism says is you kind of got to go along with it. If you want to live life in the human world, you kind of got to go, yeah, okay, fine, that's what you guys believe. I'll just kind of go along with it to deal with stuff. I think that's another part of the Buddhist attitude, is that you kind of accept that this is what people in this world believe, and that to a certain extent you have to go along with it in order to sort of be sociable, to deal with other people, to not be a big pain in the butt to everybody that you meet by yelling about your conspiracy theories and all that. You kind of just gotta deal with it. But, internally, I don't buy it, and I don't think most people who really understand Buddhism well buy into it. So there you go. There's where I stand on conspiracy theories, and I hope I haven't freaked everybody the F out. But maybe I have. I don't know. Just thought you might find that a little interesting. Anyway, I am traveling around Europe, not talking about conspiracy theories, but talking about Buddhism. And on the screen, you'll see the dates. About half of these dates you're seeing on the screen are finished, but and the finished dates are finished. But if you want to go and see some of the other dates, here is a URL you can go to. It's hardcorezen.info/events, and there you will find clickable links to the remaining dates on my tour, and some of them are things you can go to. So click on those links and see how you can get to the things I am still doing. And if you want to support me, I am getting paid for most, but not all, of the events that I'm doing in Europe. But that is not how I make my living. It is a minuscule tiny part of how I make my living, but most of my living comes from the donations that I get at the URL that you are seeing on your screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. That is where I make most of my living, and I really appreciate your support. But as always, this is offered for free, so you don't gotta support me if you don't want to support me. We will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Laters. Bye.